Good morning, aloha, and welcome to Lucy's Paradise Podcast. Today we have a solo episode. So I got some things to kind of go over, kind of discuss a little bit of Hawaii news, a little bit of some other stuff that's been going on in the world. The first thing I think that is pretty interesting, I've been watching a lot of the news, KHON and all that about this particular case. I find it really interesting, and I was like really trying to research like what exactly is going on in this case. So, a lot of the older people that have lived in Hawaii for a while might recognize this case. This happened in the Big Island back in 1991. They call it the Dana Ireland case. She was a visitor from Virginia. She was about 23 years old at this time, riding her bike in Puna. This was Christmas Eve, 1991. She got hit. So I'm assuming she got like hit by a car. And raped and killed on Christmas Eve back then in 1991. So they ended up arresting, like they had like a trial and everything. Ended up arresting two guys for the crime. However, recently this just came about. So they had, and I was trying to research exactly like where they came up with this list and where they came up with the idea to swab this particular guy. They ended up swabbing somebody, and his name was Albert Laurel Jr. They invited him in, swabbed him, like just recently, July 19th of this year. And 4 days later, or like a few days, I think it was 3 days later actually, he ends up killing himself. And then on the fourth day, they got the results back and found out that his DNA actually matched everything in the case, and that he was most likely the one that raped and murdered her. So I was just reading this, like, what in the heck? They had this guy in their custody, right, to be able to swab him, but it's really, really strange. I don't know. Anytime there's some sort of Hawaii HPD police investigation story, there's always something that doesn't sound right, because I feel like they're just not that great at their job. Sorry to criticize, especially for the Big Island police. I don't know in comparison if they're better or worse than here in Honolulu, but there's always something. Now, obviously, back in 1991, they didn't have the same technology, right? So it could be understandable that they weren't able to figure a lot of this stuff out. I guess they ended up narrowing down a list of potential people to swab based on like some of their history. This particular person, Albert, they basically chose him because he lived on the Big Island for most of his life. And he also lived 2 miles away from where this particular person was murdered. So for them, that was enough to kind of like, okay, let's swab this guy. Super weird. Apparently, I guess, and this is the part that I'm like trying to figure out within doing research for this story that I couldn't quite like figure out, because in a couple articles it says that they basically know that he raped her because of the DNA, and I'm unclear if they like figured that out prior or what. But apparently they're also saying and had made statements that they didn't have enough evidence to arrest him for that. And they just didn't have probable cause to arrest him for the murder portion of it. It's obviously been 33 years since this occurred. So the statute of limitations, I guess, for arresting him for the rape, it was outside of those limitations. So now, because they're talking about there's like a 4-day delay with getting the results back with the DNA and all this stuff, that portion of it kind of confuses me. I'm not sure how they know that. Did they have... So I'm thinking, too, because they mentioned getting, like, his utensils, I guess, that he threw away and doing DNA on that. So I'm guessing that they got his DNA in a not legal way to link him to it, and then ended up inviting him to get his actual, him signing off on giving his swab away. There's definitely a lot of technicalities in the police world when it comes to that. So, and then to be able to prove that that's, like a fork you used that actually has your DNA on it, right? Anything that can be thrown out in court, they don't want to mess with that. They don't like gray areas. Whenever there's a gray area, right, that could mean that somebody gets away with it or whatever it may be. So it's understandable. There's a lot of details in this case in doing my research that I'm just like, wait, what? Also, reading these articles where they're reporting on certain things, it's unclear exactly all of the time frame, what is it? Time frame? Timeline. Thank you. Timeline. God, I'm tired. Okay, timeline for this particular case. Anyway, super sad though that, her family won't get that type of like justice and closure when the actual person that's responsible gets, punished or the justice is served, quote unquote, I guess. So it's a little sad. I'm not sure now because they had 2 other gentlemen that were already serving time for this particular crime. So now they're like not sure what they're going to do with these guys since they technically didn't murder her or whatever, even though one of them admitted to being involved in some way. So I'm not sure how this all links. I'd really love to sit down and like watch their interviews, which if you know me at all, I love any type of investigation show. So I love, unsolved mysteries, cold cases that they end up solving, anything like that. I love watching that kind of stuff. There's this particular show that I just found recently that I've kind of been watching, and I'd like to watch these shows and watch them over again. I'm just very fascinated by the investigative process and how they discover certain things, how the police officers or interviewers end up getting certain information out of people, and stuff like that, or like body language, how guilty people act when they're starting to get interviewed. And then the latter of that is when they have someone they know for sure is not involved, and then they're interviewing them and they can tell, yeah, this person knows nothing. So all of that really fascinates me, the psychology behind the body language and things like that. So I do like to watch shows like that. And even though they can be, tragic in a lot of different ways, right? Because someone's getting hurt or murdered or whatever. But it's the investigative process part fascinates me. So I'm not sure what's going to come out more on this. Big Island Police had to make a bunch of statements about this now that they know that dude is specifically involved based on his DNA. But yeah, if I were the family, I'd be so pissed. But again, there's only so much you can do coming from a police standpoint where, if you make an arrest the wrong way, this person can be free forever. So you do have to kind of follow these steps, make sure that there is the probable cause, make sure the evidence really, really is unarguable so that, somebody doesn't just walk free and then commit a crime again. But it's really wild to me, this whole entire thing. So that guy would have been about 24 years old at the time of the crime. So all of that, those little pieces fit in there. But he killed himself, so hopefully he's just rotting in hell, I guess. I don't know. But what a coward. But anyway, that's if that doesn't tell you you're guilty, I don't know what does. I'm trying to think. I might save this one for the end. But there was also a stabbing in Mililani. So Mililani is very stabby, according to Cody. When I had Cody on, he was telling me that Mililani was stabby, and I was like, no, it's not. Well, I guess it is. So I don't know their names. I think it's better not to say it anyway because one of them's a minor. But a 16-year-old was stabbed by a 19-year-old, and as of today, apparently they made an arrest on that 19-year-old. So he's up for like $750,000 bail. They don't know much details about that. Nothing really came out. So we don't know like what it was over or what the situation was with that. Super strange that these things do happen. I feel like for me, when I read about these things that happen in the smaller towns like Mililani, I grew up basically between Mililani and Wahiawa. Wahiawa, you kind of expect a stabbing here and there, There's a lot of shadier things that are going on. And that's just, I think, the reputation. Mililani's reputation is that it's a safe community to raise families. And so when something like this happens, it makes, people a little nervous. But the times are changing. So everyone's, I don't know what's going on with Hawaii sometimes. I feel like the crime is going up ever since COVID. I feel like obviously the homelessness has increased, which I talked a little bit about that with my last guest, Nikki, and she noticed it too, just being somebody that's been here for a few years. But yeah, as more comes out on that, I'm wondering kind of what's gonna happen with that. I did kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the past guests I had. Let's see, Sammy Sosa. He was a really fun guest to have. I liked having him on. I'd love to have him on again. He's been doing great. We've gotten some workouts in, so it's been good to see him. Nalo from Waimanalo. Haven't seen him around in the comedy scene or anything. But he was probably the most interesting guest that we've had. It was like, when you go... I'm like, is this a good analogy? When you go out to the bars, but like you're the only sober one, and you're watching everybody just like run around and like do karaoke and sing off key and like take shots with each other, and they're like, they're having like a great time, but they're like kind of acting like a lot. I feel like I was sitting there and just watching that happen. It's funny though, because he has been posting some of the clips from our episode, and we did talk about a lot of like really interesting issues. So I'd love to talk about those particular issues, like the Red Hill water crisis and the rail here in Hawaii. That's a complete waste. And other things that I'm sure will come up real soon. And just kind of what Hawaii, and as we're now getting closer and closer into like the election season and all that, just kind of like what other things are going to be coming about. So it's really interesting. Living here in Hawaii is really, really interesting. I'm kind of in a weird spot because I can't really vote here yet. I'm technically a resident of California, which is horrible. Which is even worse. But I don't know what's worse, like being a resident of Hawaii or California. But I can't vote here quite yet, so yeah, it's interesting. I can in California, which I do definitely feel slightly separated now that I'm not there actually living in California. But I do try to read up as much as I can before I make any type of like voting decision and stuff like that. Anyway, what else? Oh yeah, Nikki Nason, who we just had on last week. So that episode will be going live this Friday. She was awesome to have on. Super inspired by her. Super interesting. Whenever I meet anybody with YouTube channels and things like that, and kind of how they were able to start that, kind of what inspired them, all of that stuff really fascinates me. And so super excited that she was able to come on. And maybe down the road she'd be able to come on again. And with that said, I do have a podcast party that is going to be happening on August 31st. Please come, please RSVP if you can. The first 15 people will get little goodie bags. So if you're one of the first 15 people to RSVP, you will get a little goodie bag. All of my past guests will also get one. Now I know Maddie, she was my guest that flew from the Bay Area. She'll still get one. I'll just have to send it to her. But, and if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please DM me on my Instagram and I can send you the information for that so that you could possibly be a guest on the podcast if you'd like. The podcast party is going to be fun. It's going to be at Kapalina Beach Homes, Cove 2, I believe. It's going to be out there right on the beach. We're going to be able to play volleyball. There's going to be a DJ. We're also going to have a bar that is going to serve primarily mocktails because I'm not drinking anymore. You can actually order alcohol, but I'm still have to talk to her about how that's going to work. So I might have to just have one type of alcohol or something like that. So more on that soon, but there will be a bar from Agua Babe is her like brand name, so she'll be there. So even if you like, I mean, I would have liked that if you are around that you just come and participate in the podcast party. The whole RSVP process, that really is just for me to get a good general idea of how many people I'm going to expect that kind of know me and that are in my social circle. So obviously if you are around Kapalina and you find out about this later and you just show up, that's fine. It's going to be at a beach. I can't stop anybody from being there. And the more the merrier, as long as, just please come in, respect the space, respect what we're doing. We will have some cameras and mics set up to be able to interview people in here and there and record kind of like a live podcast type scenario. The reason we're doing that, we are getting in preparation for TwitchCon. And at TwitchCon, we are going to be setting up the cameras and the microphones in a similar fashion. And we'd like to kind of play with it at the podcast party and kind of see how it turns out. Now, obviously, being at the beach, we're going to have like a little more wind and things like that. But it shouldn't be an issue because we're going to have the right equipment out there. And it's going to be a really fun time for people to be able to come and celebrate. We're basically just celebrating the podcast, celebrating the start of the podcast. I'd like to do this every year if possible. But it's really just celebrating the creation of this idea that I've had for so long that has now manifested into reality, and kind of just like a thank you and give back to everybody who's been involved as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'd really love for everybody to please come and please invite your friends and whoever. Kids are invited. Nobody, like I said, nobody's excluded from it. It is going to be a beach setting, so there's going to be like the ocean and there's like a little volleyball net. So it's a really pretty area. So even if you want to come and have a beach day or you just want to swing by, please come. It would really mean a lot. With that, oh yeah, I was going to talk about Josh. So Josh Snow, he failed our little agreement. Our agreement was to not drink for a whole year. I have not broken that agreement, and it is now July 30th. I haven't broken the agreement, but he texted me a few days ago, and he said that he broke the agreement because he drank at his brother's wedding. And I was like, I now get your firstborn child. No, but we didn't like bet anything. We were just kind of like challenging each other. I probably will just keep doing it because it's been really positive in my life to be able to just focus on the things that I'm doing. And I feel good every day. So yeah, I have no real inspiration to like go and drink again. And I'm so obsessed with mocktails that it's, besides all the sugar content, but it's really good. So yeah, I'm still sober. Josh failed. He's a loser. If you're seeing this, Josh, you're a loser, and I win. So that feels good. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't even know how people are gonna feel about like me even bringing it up or whatever, but it's just been something that like has been so discussed, especially on like YouTube and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? I kind of want to discuss it, but the portion of it that I do want to discuss is pretty specific. I'm talking about the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, who was, a former president, and people keep saying he's like gonna win now, and like now he's the future president. He's gonna win now because he survived this. I'm not really gonna speak on that too much. I don't want to get like too in-depth politically, and this is what I always tell people, right? Because I had a friend recently that was like trying to argue with me on social media, and I'm like, I'm not trying to have a debate on Instagram right now. But this is the thing. I try to keep as open-minded as possible and not make decisive decisions about things, where I'm going to vote, things like that, until it gets to very close to the time that that's actually going to happen. So, and the reason I like to do that is I like to be able to stay open-minded enough to receive more information, and do a lot more research, on there could be a candidate that comes up tomorrow that I know nothing about, right? It would be silly for me to choose someone I'm going to vote for today and then just ignore that new candidate. I think, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, nobody has to agree with me. I don't care who you vote for, okay? The voting's probably rigged anyway, so that's kind of a joke, but who knows? I don't really care. It's not going to affect our friendship whether you vote for somebody that I wouldn't vote for or whatever. Our political differences, to me, don't make a difference. It doesn't, that's just how I am. I know a lot of people aren't like that, and that's okay. But if you're one of my friends or you're somebody that knows me and you have completely different political views than me, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be your friend. I believe that we can still debate about certain things, even if we don't agree on them, and that doesn't necessarily affect the friendship. Whether other people believe in that or not, I'm not sure. I think people just take certain things too personally, or whatever it may be. So it is what it is. I'm just saying that. Anyway, the part that I wanted to kind of discuss with this attempted assassination attempt, and I felt like this is really something, and I was like kind of taken aback by this whole thing. I've always kind of sat here and been really stressed to everybody, to question everything, don't believe things that you hear in the media, do your own research, things like that. And I still obviously will push people to do that, and I'll always tell people to do that. Do your own research, listen to even the opposing views, just get all the reporting, get all the facts, listen to things, and hear all sides of the argument. With this, I thought it was really interesting. If you guys get a chance to watch any of this stuff, please do so. So they basically had the head of the Secret Service, and they did a bunch of questioning with her. So Kimberly Cheatle, it was really interesting. Look it up on YouTube. Please look it up. It's really, really interesting. She answered 0 questions that they asked her. She wasn't specific at all. They were trying to get specific questions and specific answers out of her, and all of her responses were just, honestly, it was pretty weird. Now, I understand not being able to answer certain things when there's ongoing investigations, but some of the very obvious information you could still be able to answer, so I thought it was kind of strange. Please watch it. I do urge everybody to just watch it. Form your own opinion as you will, that's fine. Just watch that portion of it. I think it's really interesting. I think it opens people's eyes up to stuff. And at one point, the guy that was interviewing her, he's literally like, this is frustrating for the American people to and that's he's right. Even when you watch the whole thing, it's pretty frustrating. Why isn't she answering simple questions? What's interesting is he even told her hey, at 6:11 p.m. Eastern time, that's when shots started to ring out. Apparently at 5:51, they were already kind of the Secret Service was told that's there was, I don't know exactly what they were told, but they were told something, and they just were pointing out at no point was the rally ever stopped. At no point did people think to maybe pull, Donald Trump off the stage temporarily to maybe see what this is about. That's what I would have possibly done if I were somebody in that position, hearing something weird happening or occurring. I think the first thing to do is kind of get him in a safe area, and then kind of see what they're talking about or what's going on. What's interesting though, that they point out and they ask her about, which of course she doesn't answer any questions, is that the building that the shooter was actually on, when they were doing their initial assessment of the area, they said, oh, this building is a vulnerability. The building was only about 150 yards away, and for some reason, it was outside of their perimeter that they had, which makes no sense because the type of like rifle he was using, it has a range of about like 400 to 450 meters. So for them to kind of like ignore that fact and not prepare for that is strange, I think. I don't know that building would have ever been like outside of any type of perimeter. I think it just makes more sense to put somebody on that roof. So yeah, that was really strange. They also show a video 2 minutes prior from those shots ringing out, where you see the rally goers yelling like he's on the roof, and they're pointing, and people are recording, and there's some sort of commotion, right? My personal opinion is that during a time like that, you know, if they're told anything, is the first thing that makes the most sense is to just, you know, get him out of there and kind of assess from there. Super strange. The whole scenario just seems kind of strange. But now, again, we also don't know like what kind of communication was going on or what people were told or hear and things like that. I've definitely shown up at some calls when I was in the military where what we thought we were showing up to was not actually what we showed up to. I definitely had a call where we thought we were showing up to somebody who hurt themselves. So I remember feeling all of that anxiety from that and being stressed, like, oh my gosh, like what am I about to walk into? To the guy who called, tried to explain that the person like opened something that ended up shattering and it cut them. So technically they cut themselves, but it wasn't like that. It was that they just accidentally cut themselves. So sometimes, you know, there is some giant game of telephone that ends up happening, right, in a situation like this. I'm not using that example as an excuse of that's probably what happened here. I don't know. I think all of that is definitely is now currently being investigated and slowly gonna come out to the American public. I think it's frustrating how much they hide from us as the American public. I think that everybody should take note of that. Why do they hide stuff? Why, you know, question that seems strange. The Secret Service is supposed to be the people that are protecting the president, so it just seems a little weird. Or they just seem like really unqualified. I don't know. I don't know. Her interview, though, just crazy. She doesn't answer anything. So have fun watching that. They have it now on YouTube, and you can find it pretty much anywhere now. So we'll see as things progress what's going to happen with that. Other than that, you know, a public rally like that, I mean, every scenario, everything possible should be thought of. And if they're not thinking of that, then someone's failing in their job. So I don't know how that's going to work with the Secret Service, who's going to get fired or what they're going to say about that. Dang, I should have done more research on that one police officer that shot that lady who called 911. But I didn't research it a lot, but that's, I know, like super going viral right now, and everyone's like talking about that and posting it. And I think the last thing I saw was that he was actually getting charged for murder, which sounds about right. It just, you know, I read like a brief overview of what occurred, and it sounded like what? So yeah, I don't know what's going on with these, with that kind of stuff. I have to definitely do more research on that before I comment on it more. I definitely like to talk about that. Anything involving police and stuff, I like to talk about or bring up. But yeah, the whole attempted assassination on Trump thing is interesting, and the Secret Service, I don't know, man. I think it kind of sucks because I feel like females in that realm are getting like really scrutinized. And I know the video of like the Secret Service agent that was trying to put her weapon away, like everyone's like scrutinizing that, like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't even be doing that. And it's such a hard one. Because this is the truth of the matter is this, right? No matter who you are, but when there becomes a real life or death situation, when there becomes an emergency situation, the people that are trained to not panic and they're trained well will be able to do their job and be able to do it successfully regardless of what's going on around them. And you really don't know what someone's capable of until those situations occur. So when you see a video of somebody not being able to put their weapon away, that just tells me that their anxiety is really high. In that video, you know, she's looking left, she's looking right, she's looking all around. Now, there clearly is some state of panic, right, with what happened because there were shots ringing out. And I don't know, I can't speak to what her actual experience is. But like I said, once something really is going down, I mean, that's the only way you gain experience is when those things happen. So if she's never been in that situation before, she doesn't have experience until those situations happen over and over and over. And then, you know, then she'll have more experience. But it sucks for females, I would say, in that realm because now they're going to be even more scrutinized, you know. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, they probably don't care. You know, they'll probably be like, oh, she'll still be Secret Service or whatever for a while. But like I said, as time goes on and as you enter those situations, those real life emergency situations, you gain that experience. I only talk about that because I was in Silver Air Patrol for, God, how long was I in Silver Air Patrol for? 16, like 3 years. So I spent a lot of time when I was younger having to train younger cadets for emergency situations. And, you know, we basically search for down aircraft. When an aircraft goes down, it basically sends off an ELT. It's like a emergency locating transmitter, basically goes off, and then you can actually track where that plane is. So I was trained at that time for those type of search and rescue missions, and then I'd have to train other cadets on how to do that. So we would make like mock situations where we would like pretend there was a down aircraft. But like I said, there's no pretend emergency situation until emergency situation happens. So like active shooter or a barricaded subject or, you know, any other type of emergency. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that Secret Service agent. We'll see what happens with the head of Secret Service and all this stuff. To me, it seems weird and it seems fishy and it seems like there's either, and I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, there's a conspiracy. Like, I'm not really there yet. You know, do I believe that that's a possibility? Yeah, perhaps, but I'm not there where I believe that. I just think there's something going on, maybe very underqualified or something. But it's weird, and I do challenge you guys to research some of that stuff. And yeah, comment what you think or comment what you end up finding. Like, please, I love to chat about that and try to figure out if we can find out on our own what's going on, you know? It's our own unsolved mystery. But anyway, it's weird. But yeah, man, that's all I got. That's all I got for today. It's a solo episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for watching Lucy's Paradise Podcast. I'll see you guys at the podcast party. And again, thanks for watching Lucy's Paradise Podcast. Aloha.